Welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast, a podcast where we focus on real issues and have real talk, and as always, provide a biblical perspective. We hope that you will be blessed as you listen.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Welcome back, just like we never left. Hey, today, let me tell you, by the way, before we get started, thank you for all the feedback, all the energy, all the good, gems that we received from you all. But there's one that stood out that I have to start with. Somebody wrote to us or called or reached out, and they said that, did Ezra call Kenan my Kenan? I want to declare before we start that was inserted in there. I wanted to declare that was inserted in there. You see, if you realized Kenan wasn't hosting, so he had to do the editing. So therefore, I want to let the viewers and the listeners know that some things, take them with a grain of salt. Take them with a grain of salt. That is the energy, that is our time. But thank you so much. All that to say thank you for the feedback that we received. Thank you for all who called. Thank you for all who watched, those who sent your messages talking about love. Somebody said that there's a song that says Ayo-O-L-O-V-E. I don't sing, but they say the podcast reminded them something along those lines. So thank you guys for the feedback. But keep loving one another. At the end of the day, it's not just a talk. It's not just a show. We want to talk about these and keep it real. We are back like we never left with the two wise men. And there's a show they call two men and two half. What is that?
2.5 men.
2.5 men. So welcome back to the 2 men and a half men. You will figure out who the half man is as the podcast goes on. So I want to welcome our panelists, our viewers, our friends. They've been with us before to quickly share their thoughts, their views. Welcome back again, gentlemen.
Thank you.
As usual, we're going to start from my far right, and then we're going to come closer to me this way. So your name, something exciting, whatever you want to say. It's your time.
Sir Jackson, he took the words back like I never left, and just totally excited to keep talking more about love. I hope it won't just be in the air, but it'll be in our hearts and in our lives.
All right. It feels weird when 3 men talk about love, but it's all good. We're here to have that conversation. All right, next to me.
It's actually should be a topic that is spoken more by men.
Uh-huh.
Well, good evening or good morning or good night or good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to another discussion here, another podcast. My name's Collins Maranga. We're back like we never left.
All right, we will not miss to introduce the guy behind the camera. We have recently realized that he functions better until he starts inserting some ear clips in there. We're going to work on that. But I just want to shout out Kenan. I will not say my Kenan, our Kenan. So we can share that together as we did this. So Amazing Truth Ministries, it's us back like we never left. Today we have a special topic. It's still under the same theme, but we're starting to branch lower and get a little bit deeper. As we said last time, we are just coming from a bunch of 3 African men sharing our perspectives where we still stand to be corrected. We stand to share from our own lens. And so if you sense implicit bias, it's not because we're trying to be biased, it's because this is our experience and our journey and where we have been. So we will love your comments, we'll love your thoughts, we'll love your perspective, we'll love your pushback so that we can learn and grow together in this. So today, we're not only talking about love. Every time I say love, I have to pause. Love. But we are talking about the emotional needs of love. Hey, emotions and an African man. Emotions. Let me begin from their perspective. Why do African men have problem with emotions? What did emotions do to them?
No, they have no problem with emotions. It's the
emotions have problems with them.
No, it's a kind of emotions they express. If you mean the mushy, soft one, many struggle with that. But the tougher range of emotions, many have no problem expressing.
They don't
even need teaching. They just express those ones. but it's a tender, soft ones, I think, which are equated with weakness, or they're equated as, when you think about the words we use for love, it's more, it tends to feel a bit more feminine. So maybe that's why many men don't express it, unless you're maybe kissy. The kissy word for love is just rough.
Oh man! Hey!
It doesn't sound like love.
It doesn't. It sounds like it almost sounds like I'm going to hit you.
Okay, let's say the word love in different languages and see how it sounds. The ones that we know.
Okay.
We probably know like two.
Swahili is
upendo, and we as a verb it's nakupenda.
Yes.
All right. Any European language of love that you know? You see, that's
love. And as a verb is I love you.
I love you. That is English. So you have no clue about clue about Europe.
German, French, anybody?
But England is Europe.
Kenan might be lying. Creating words. We cannot confirm or deny what he said.
We as a podcast will not take
We will
responsibility.
not of what Kenan has said. No, seriously. What's love in French? Jotayeng.
First of all, it's jo.
Jo.
Sure.
Look, another Kurutu trying to teach another one how to pronounce love. All right. I mean, it'd be interesting to just even Spanish, French, man, our ignorance just showed up right here.
Where is Google Translate?
Google Translate. We can Google that
When you need it.
when you
When
need
it.
it. But anyways, it's not about spelling. It's about even the way we're just trying to define it. It's almost the emotion that can be articulated with that is there's a way it's supposed to sound. There's even want to hear how it sounds. Like when you say love, there's already a biased view of how it should come out, how it should sound, how it should feel, how it should, so when the Saya says the Kisi version, that's the only language that he has beef with. It's a Kenyan tribe in Kenya, so he just feels superior because he comes from the neighboring language, but it's all good. We won't go there for now.
How do you compare Nekwanchete with Ndahuyanza? I mean, just two things are worlds apart. One sounds like Ho, the other one sounds like a reincarnation of Songs of Solomon.
Okay. You see, the problem is when you start going with other more sophisticated languages, like the one Kenan said. But love in the African context, or rather generally, even when you go back to early days of the European culture, the Roman Empire, when you think about the Babylonian days and all these cultures, ancient cultures, Egyptian cultures, there seems to be that the word love and the emotions seems to have some patriarchal sense of feel or macho, or does that am I making sense, or does that sound like it's wrong?
Do you mean matriarchal or patriarchal?
Matriarchal.
Okay.
Yes. But then when it comes to expressing it, the patriarchal aspect shows that men are supposed to express it a certain way, and women are supposed to express it a certain way, or vice versa. Am I making sense, or am I sounding like this is when Kenan sits, or like Kenan? I want to make sure I sound like me. No, really, what are emotional needs? Are they equated with gender and femininity and emotions and stuff? Well, let's break the ice from there.
From the way different cultures have interacted with the emotional needs over the many years, many thousands of years, it's almost as if the whole world is in agreement that women are more expressive of their emotional needs than men. Okay. Very few cultures you'll find men expressing themselves more, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. But generally, women express themselves emotionally more than women express themselves more. Did I say men?
Women.
I don't remember. Women express themselves more emotionally than men.
In a mushy way.
Yeah.
That's what I had to say. In a mushy way.
Men will, when you watch the movie 300, for instance, both sets of emotion are there. Leonidas's wife is there wishing him and the company goodbye. She's expressing more of the softer side. And then when these guys get to battle, there's a whole range of emotions they express. And yeah, trust you me, it's not love that they're expressing at that point. It's fighting to the end. So both sides. But I think for this discussion, I think the word emotion here being associated with love is more of the softer, the tender word. And just to add to the initial question, to respond to the initial question you asked about what then are emotional needs, it's, first of all, emotions, I like viewing them as the dashboards, the lights on the dashboard of life that tell you there's something is happening in the engine of your life. Yeah, just to make it easier is when you express rage, for instance, it's a external manifestation of something internal, either being met or not being met, but manifesting externally. So whereas love at its highest level is both a decision, it's very intentional, intellectual and everything, but it is also fundamentally an emotion. And so the way I view, and on this one I am the amateur, so the way I view emotional needs of a relationship is to think about what are those things that we need to put into the engine of the heart so that the expression, the external expression of love can become either enhanced. And these things could work both ways. It means there are things which if you put, there'll be better expressions of love. And the contrary is true, that if you starve the heart of those particular needs, then the expression or the capacity to express love is diminished. I know Collins has a nice analogy about banks and deposits that explains this way better than I could. So maybe I'll defer to him for the same.
Yeah, when you talk banks, we think money, and we know that is an area of struggle. But let's Collins, if you can expound further using that analogy, I think it will help us to set in as I have a quote here that I want us to digest after we come back to that. So Collins, over to you.
Is a quote from Kenan?
We don't do Kenan quotes here.
Well, coming to looking at them from a relationship standpoint, emotional needs are cravings that people have that when they are met, they make us happy. We feel happy. When they are not met, we feel frustrated. We feel unhappy. We feel like something has not happened that needs to happen.
So it's a need, it's not a want.
It is a need.
Okay.
It is
a
need,
dashboard.
and it is a inborn need.
Okay.
Just so what happens if when you say is the effect not just feeling happy, or is there something more to that? Like when they're met, you're saying when they're met we feel happier, when they're not met we don't feel happy. Is that all to it, or is there anything more?
So when these needs are met, you not only feel happy, but you also you feel satisfied. You feel calm. You're able to move on to the next things. You're able to perform at your best. But when these needs are not met, you not only feel unhappy, but you're frustrated. It's like they occupy your mind until something happens that meets that need. Sometimes when they are not met over a long period of time, this is where people begin to develop some form of depression. They also, people may be unsatisfied with their lives. Something is not right with my life.
Okay.
So
cool.
they're powerful. Emotional needs are really very powerful. Okay. They change our behaviors.
So emotional needs, they're like a dashboard of something deeper. They just, the anger you express, the emotion of anger, the emotion of sadness, the emotion of happiness, there is a cause behind that. Yeah. Because these happen, I feel sad. And the emotion that is expressed is sadness or happiness.
Yep.
All right. What's your take on this quote? Men need to be loved physically in order to love emotionally. Women need to be loved emotionally in order to love physically. I'm trying to sound wise. Is that true?
Like all statements of summary, they lose nuance.
Okay.
So they capture some truth, but they lose nuance.
So let's unpack that.
Okay.
What is the... it's not your quote, so maybe you might not have the context, but when you think about that quote, how true is it or how false is it?
50-50. So the first thing it does is that it dichotomizes. Is that a big word?
For Kenan, it might be.
Poor Kenan. He's just busy minding his own business. Then from nowhere, boom, he
has no mic to defend himself. So,
but remember, he has the edit. He can do us.
He has the edit button.
So, I think the whole dichotomizing emotional needs as either physical or emotional is understandable. Is understandable. As a human being, we like classifying things and breaking them down so that it is easier to relate or explain. But when the rubber meets the road, that margin is really not true. And when you secondly come to this, finally list down the top needs of emotional needs of a woman and the top emotional needs of a man, you'll find men have genuine emotional needs, genuine emotional needs, and that quite a number of the even seemingly physical needs of a man, like a man needs somebody to play with, it's a very physical thing. It meets a very deep emotional need. Mm-hmm. So I do understand, and I think it's quotes like that keep fostering the understanding. And here I'm speaking with all the benefit of context, but they keep fostering the notion that women are more emotional, men are more physical. But all factors held constant, everything I have said, the bent of women is more towards the emotional side. The bent of men is more towards the physical side. That's what that quote tells me.
Okay.
Well, he has put it well, and to some extent, the quote is too simplistic.
Yes.
Because when we come to look at the actual emotional needs, you will find that men and women are physical. The need for affection, for example, it's not only word of mouth, but it's also flowers. Flowers are not emotional. They are physical. Hugs are physical.
They're digital nowadays also.
Now they're digital. Cards. I love you cards, or get well soon. Those are ways in which we share affection. They're all physical. So when we say women are more emotional than physical, and you consider that,
you lose nuance. It's
lose
too simplistic.
Yeah.
Both of you have itemized the theme that keeps on coming is men's emotional need versus women's emotional needs. I don't know how I want to frame this. I'm trying to figure out. Now, growing up, let me use an example. Growing up, there are certain things I wasn't expected to do emotionally. If you are in a classroom and you get punished, you as a man, you shouldn't cry. You shouldn't show that outburst of emotion. A girl could do that and scream, and it was acceptable. Growing up, I expected emotions. There was more. Give me examples of emotions that were acceptable. Let me use that example. For me, I've given an example. What are some of emotions growing up for you, either subconsciously or consciously, they were cemented that these are okay for ladies to do, and these are okay for men not to do, or vice versa, to express themselves within your life, culture, and so forth?
Let me start. When we were young, we in school we could make mistakes even at home, and when your dad comes, and he is told you did this, you did that, and he decides that spanking is going to be the discipline today. Boys were not expected to cry. You were expected to take the beating and be quiet as a man and take it in and move on with life. Women, on the other hand, or my sisters, were expected to cry. Now, the funny thing is, even though I was not expected to cry, when I did not cry, my dad took that as I'm being rude.
You're not feeling my pain.
I'm not feeling the
Your
punishment.
You're non-responsive.
better put. So in a way, and if I cry, he gets that satisfaction that he has given me enough punishment, but then I am acting like a girl, and he will actually verbalize that.
Okay.
So I was confused. Honestly, I was confused. Where am I? Should I cry or should I not? And we go to school, and it was the same. The teachers, when they are spanking you, they were expecting that you will cry. But because you are a man, they were expecting you not to produce any sound. Okay? If you did, everybody, including my friends, would laugh at me and say,
You're a wuss.
I'm a wuss.
You're weakling and stuff.
Yeah.
Is it? I think a historical understanding of this difference, at least manifested in society, would be important. So men are more physical. Men are more, just by nature, biology, we are more physical. So in most cultures, the work of physical protection rested among men, and the more manual or labor-intensive duties like hoeing or hunting tended to fall on the shoulders of men. And women, being less muscular, and also because of certain biological functions like the ability to get pregnant, the ability to give suckle, were given the more nurture-related roles, which was homekeeping and stuff. And if you go as far back as before the agricultural revolution or the industrial revolution, the parting of duties was that way. Now, the nature of life then was such that men going out either for war, for territory, or for war, for food and stuff like that, didn't have too much luxury to entertain pain or crying, because if you get wounded and we stop and we cannot continue advance, it's going to be to our disadvantage. And while women had the option of staying home and being able to have a bit more time to process and express their emotions, both verbally and otherwise. And in many cultures, they also evolved a secondary role where a woman's vocalization, like screaming, shouting, ululating, served as an alarm system to notify, and still happens in many societies, like the announcement of death in many villages is through women. When you read even texts like the Bible, the announcement of war, victories, or losses was through women's, the ululation and stuff. And over the centuries, this difference was codified. It therefore meant men in war, being with each other, codified the silence and the less expressiveness as toughness, as what was needed for the survival and progress. And it so happened that post that time, now when we transitioned into industrial revolution, agricultural revolution, the same code was now transferred, albeit this time the toughness you showed on battlefield was shown in the modern day battlefields of class and industry and corporate and everything. And what happened in the field then now made its way into the home and soon became the accepted or expected code, and therefore it was therefore ingrained. If we played amongst ourselves and something happened and you tended to verbalize or talk about it, you were called a girl. It was seen as a sign of weakness. The expectation was men were never able to fully verbalize their emotional needs, like they're feeling depressed or hungry or any of those things. But the failure to express was not necessarily evidence of that they did not exist. It was over years we just learned to suppress some of these things or express them differently. And therefore, I think a lot of the physical outlets we saw in our soccer fields or as we played when growing younger was probably a volcano of emotion in men finding its way for release.
So thank you for that historical context. I think it's very critical for us to understand that this is something that developed over many centuries, many years, and now it has been codified that this is now expected. Do you think that's the reason why today we see issues to do with equity and equality, gender balance and all those kind of things? Because over a period of years, if I'm in battle, if it was codified in corporate world, if it was codified in board meetings, it was codified all here, all of a sudden it's like we're the strong people or the men, the macho and stuff. Do you think that had a role to play in that, which now eventually trickles into the homes too?
I think what it did is when men ran out of beasts to dominate, many of them looked for new things to dominate. But the craving for domination was nothing more than a misdirection of emotion.
Okay.
And that perpetuated over time disadvantaged ladies in many societies. Okay? As a result, for quite a number of years, the balance of voice, okay? I'm not saying power, because I think women have had just a very different kind of power over time, but a balance of voice and agency was not too well done within society. But that for me just stems from people changing what to dominate, from dominating an elephant in the wild to beginning dominating each other.
All right. So Collins, as we're still, guys, we're still under the topic of emotions. We're getting the context. We're laying the foundation here. We're laying the groundwork. Yep. Why is it seems as though women are more expressive over a period of time versus men and so forth? What are some of the implications when our emotions were historically, for whatever reasons, whatever experience has been, misdirected? What are some of the implications that we see when emotions, whether for male or female, for both genders, generally for a human being, when emotions are misdirected? What are some of the consequences that come up as a result of that?
There are actually many consequences. When emotions are bottled in, then they're not expressed, and when they are misdirected. So when they are bottled in, they have the tendency of producing depression.
Okay.
And this is when you see men not being able to express themselves. Someone may feel like the end of the world is coming, and this has been happening over time, but we are just now beginning to see the effects, and they are being diagnosed now. Misdirected emotional expressions also produce violence. They produce many other things that we're beginning to see. This is when men now, because we are not able to dominate in the wild, and we now see boys in classrooms being unruly. They don't know how to express what is going on inside. You see men even at the workplace behaving in ways that are not professional, and so violence in the home, for example, domestic violence or even violence outside.
Generally.
Boys in general, when you look at boys playing outside, you'll find them almost always wanting to fight, or they have these violent games. Sometimes it's just them playing, but there are times that the bottled up emotions are coming out. That's how they're expressing themselves.
Saya, misdiagnosed.
I think it's one of the things that might be behind modern divorce rates and the increasing apathy to say marriage might be the fact that misdiagnosed emotions lead to people being strangers within relationships. I had an older friend who went to hospital, and they kept thinking he has acidity because he had a tummy issue. And so they were treating tummy issue for so long. And later in the day, they discovered he was having cancer of the stomach or of the colon, so one of the GIT parts. And long story short, it ended up with him being dead. Okay, what's true with physical disease is also true with emotional disease. That when people are relating at whichever level, the corporate, the intimate, the soccer team and everything, if I'm misdiagnosing Collins, how do you say Collins with an apostrophe? Is it Collinses or is it Collins?
I would have asked Kenan. Whatever you say is right. Hey,
Yeah.
Kenan, we're going to edit this video with rage.
There'll be an additional 5 minutes of him
Of him.
inserting revenge.
Revenge on
So if Collins and I were roommates in school, for instance. So if I misdiagnose his needs, how I relate with him could end up with our friendship dying. Just like the example that counts. And I think the apathy we're having in marriage and towards marriage and the
or even just relationships in general.
yeah, so just and one of the other place I'm just thinking like the current, like Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, and everything. A lot of it fine is social justice, but when you sit back and peel back the noise, it's actually misdiagnosed emotions. One category of society has a certain set of emotions because of the way they're perceiving life and the way they think they're showing up, or the other side is showing up. If we correctly diagnose the emotions, and what looks like rage could actually be nothing more like a clamor for voice, or what looks like withdrawal could nothing be more than maybe hurt or offended emotions and not just weakness, then it will make it easier for even different sections of the society to talk to each other, not at each other as we are currently doing. So I think those are some of the results of misdiagnosed emotions.
Will it be true if we sat down and had this conversation from a perspective of saying that if you go through oppression, there's a way that you're going to show those emotions? For example, you've talked about Black Lives, Blue Lives, all lives matter, all that kind of stuff. But when you think historically, it's one group of people saying, hey, we were oppressed and we were never heard, and we need to be heard, and we're going to do everything to be heard. And there's another group that's also equally maybe pushing back or thinking differently along those lines, and these emotions now are clashing and expressed outwardly like this.
Totally so. And by the way, this is not just Black Lives, Blue Lives, or lives.
Yeah.
It's also in the family, in the family institution. Women in many sections of the society outside of the Western Hemisphere have, and even within the Western Hemisphere, have felt that they're not listened to, they're not heard. And now increasingly when there have been movements to make them be heard and be better engaged, there's a group of men who feeling threatened or misplaced are misreading the efforts, the honest efforts in some corners to give back women voice. And there's a lot of headbutting that is happening when what is really needed is just to step back. And one thing I learned early in life was to differentiate between what is someone speaking and what is someone saying. Here I'll use when you're raised by African mothers, they have a way of speaking in the reverse. when they want you to clean the room, they say, I'm leaving the house, and just make sure you don't clean the house. Or just burn the baby and don't wash the utensils. If you follow what they say verbatim, you will be killed, okay? What they really are saying, what they are speaking is one thing, but what they are really saying is that. And I think in all the examples we've given at different levels of relationship, interracial, intergender, marriage, corporate and stuff, misdiagnosed emotions make us end up reacting to what somebody is speaking rather than to what they're really trying to say or to what they're communicating. And unfortunately, because language is the dress of ideas and words are the vehicles for thought, we often end up attacking the words or the vehicle rather than the thought or the idea that's really being communicated.
So, viewers, as you hear this conversation, a couple of things are standing out as we continue to lay this. We're going to get to what are these emotional needs and break them down as we keep on going. But what we're starting to build and what you're starting to hear is that maybe that conflict at home, it's because someone is struggling to express the emotion. Maybe that conflict relationship that has died is because that there's a suppressed emotion. Or maybe that organization that is on the verge of actually closing down is because the board members, the leaders were not able to express themselves or express themselves well. Or even it's just people who misdiagnosed emotions in a boardroom, and as a result, has nothing to do with the technical side of the work, has nothing to do with the ability to deliver, has nothing to do with financial issues, but it has everything to do with how I'm showing up because of my experience and everything. Would I be correct to say that that's what we've anchored and we've built? Have I sounded eloquent? Give me some flowers.
Mango juice for you.
Mango juice.
All right, now that we've talked about that, what are some of the emotional needs, generally, human needs? We're not going to categorize them by groups, but just general emotional needs that a human being needs.
Shine, Collins, shine, Collins. Collins.
Well, some of the emotional needs that we human beings have are needs for affection, right? There's affection, there's conversation. We like to have a conversation and talk about different areas and different parts of our lives. There is financial needs. There is the need for honesty and openness. There is the need for domestic support. There is admiration, physical attractiveness. There is quite a number of them that have been put together, and I like to think of them as buckets.
Okay.
Buckets of emotions where, like for example, affection is a bucket of the needs that surround affection, and people describe them differently. Okay. The need for conversation. There is general conversation, which you can have with anybody, but there is also intimate conversation, which is a one-on-one with someone who is a life partner or something like that. You know.
Ezra's behavior, when he had domestic support, he kept a straight face, knowing very well. And when you said buckets, he was cringing. Use maybe baskets. Baskets might work better for him than buckets would.
Oh boy.
I think for me, additional things is like the need for being respected. The need for room for my ambition or progress to advance. The need for fulfilling pursuits, like doing things that feel like they matter and they count. The need to be heard, not just listened to, but also heard, to be able to add. The need to belong and the sense and security that individuals belong.
I'm listening. Everything is an emotion at this point. Finance, it's an emotion. To be heard, it's an emotion. To pretty
sometimes
much
even food.
Actually, food is
a physical need, but it has a big emotional presence. If someone cooks very good food for you, it will and you
Don't say
actually
that loudly.
enjoy
We left
it.
some food somewhere.
You might distract. You
Yeah,
might
you're distracting
prematurely
yourself.
end this podcast.
And go get the food.
So in other words, everything is governed. I mean, it's a dashboard for everything. Emotions are dashboard for everything. The totality of humanity, of being as a human being. If I can summarize every element. Now, what are the major buckets that we hear of mostly? If I can ask that question, let me frame it differently. Let me say it this way.
Okay.
There are buckets such as, when I sit down, I think of buckets like sadness, happy, angry,
The emotional expressions.
so those expressions.
The expressions.
So what is the okay, now you see, this is where you educate me and the other group. What is the difference between emotional expressions and just emotions, just generally? Then, because I hear you're saying those are emotional buckets. Are those the buckets or baskets?
So, sadness, for example, is an expression that you show outside of what is inside. An emotional need will be inside.
Okay.
It's something that you will have to tell someone that you have a need for this. It's not going to express itself. But when you see the sadness, when you see the happiness, those are expressions you see outside of what is going on inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just think of it this way: when the dashboard light says E, or you're coming close to E,
Yeah.
that's an expression.
Okay.
The need being requested for is gas in the tank, and when you put gas in the tank, it moves from E to probably F.
Okay.
Okay, so if the emotional need that I am laboring with is the need to be accepted, okay, when you accept me, and maybe the way I understand acceptance is when you cook a good meal for me, it means like, yeah, you've accepted the communities where food is the tool for that. When I get a good meal, it meets that need, and then it gets expression through things like now joy, happiness. So those are the expressions. And the contrary is true. If I feel rejected, maybe I'm not included or invited, depending on your actions, the way that emotional need will respond will manifest itself in things like sorrow or anger or anything within that continuum.
As we start bringing these home, because today we're just laying the foundation of what are emotional needs, and I think one of the things that we have established today is that every human being has an emotional need. Every human being has an emotional need. If misdiagnosed, it's going to reflect in different ways in the society, in your personal life, everywhere else, and could lead to mental health issues, depression, could lead to domestic violence, could lead to suicidal thoughts and people feeling not loved and belonging, and eventually end up taking their lives. So it has consequences of that. And what I'm hearing is that maybe some of the problems we are facing and having as a society, as a person, as an individual, as a community, as a church, could be as a result of misdiagnosed emotions. Now, how do we now, and then we've talked about you express, they're like the light in the dashboard. There's a problem, it shows up in anger. That's how you express it. I don't feel I was treated well. The problem is not the anger, it's just that I wasn't treated well. And so the way I manifest that is by breaking a glass or
or glasses.
Or glasses.
There's misdiagnosed, there's undiagnosed.
There's undiagnosed too. So undiagnosed when I don't even know. That
you don't know. The ones who are looking at you don't know. And this is where someone remains quiet for a long time, and then you come to find them doing something. For example, a child may not express himself or herself on what he really or she really thinks, but then later on, after he or she gets his own resources, the child might decide to move to California and never come back home.
So that's the response of undiagnosed emotions.
Parents did not know.
Parents didn't know. Even maybe they themselves didn't. They don't even know even why they moved to that place, because they haven't even found out what is this thing that makes me want to stay away from my family, that loves me,
Yeah.
that provides for me, that protects me, that's there for me when I need them, but I just can't be around them.
Yeah.
There's just so undiagnosed. Sure, how many people are living, or even me, probably living with some undiagnosed emotions right now? Some things I do, even me, I'm like, why?
You call yourself for a meeting and
You
ask,
know,
who was that stranger?
You sit down and like, and I think this is so true. This is the situations where you find that person who's seated behind the bars. I'm like, why? I'm usually a calm person. How did I pick that gun? I'm usually the peacemaker. How was it that I'm the one who was at the heart, at the center of it?
You are the peacemaker, PIEC.
Oh.
Yeah, you moved from making peace to creating
Pieces.
pieces.
That's a new one.
So that's only Saya who thinks of things that the rest of us just peruse through. It is important, viewers, to really check yourself. It's important for you, and I'm honestly now. Let's bring it home. Let's make it practical. It's we can be just up here. I think. For me, when I start sitting and having this conversation, I think the things, especially once I got married, that just were brought up forefront. And I used to think myself as the most patient guy. I was.
In your room.
In my room.
In your room.
In my space, and all that kind of stuff. You start realizing that certain relationships started exposing certain things in my life that had never been exposed. And all my entire life, I lived thinking that this is normal. This is okay. Things needs to be done like that. And so I'm starting to realize that even though that was okay and that was normal, no, it's not actually. That area of my life needs to be addressed. And I think some of the ways I started dealing with those is also very evidently and unhealthy. Because now I don't know how to express. Last time I tried to express myself, it came out as an outburst. Now I shut down.
Yeah.
And then I shut down to the point that I'm not even talking to myself. Like, I just went to the other level, and I'm trying to find that balance because now I don't know how to express that emotion. I don't even know why this thing is so painful in me, but it's bothering me, and I don't know how to express that, and now I don't know how to cope with it, and now it's just that place of just I'm frustrated in that. So what are some of the practical things or situation example that you can think of? It doesn't have to be yours or a situation that you witnessed or you saw that just shows an emotional, undiagnosed or misdiagnosed emotion.
Actually, before we even go there, something that just came to my mind is from a neuropsychological standpoint, men's brains are different from women's brains.
Okay.
When you come to the communication part of our brain, women have they have a communication center on the right side and on the left side, and they communicate.
Okay.
Men have only one communication center on the left side.
No. We
Now.
have to be fair. Equality and equity. What happened to that?
This is biology.
Now this is biology. We really have nothing to do with it. This is how we were created. So this also gives us a glimpse of our biology that brings about the results that we see. Women are expressive. They are able to form words to express what they are feeling. Men, on the other hand, may not be able to express themselves verbally very well. But this is where now we come in and we we teach men how to express ourselves.
Where do you teach these men? Because I need to sign up there.
We come in and we create safe spaces with a cohort of men who can help one another. This is where if a father knows what his needs are and is able to express himself well, he can teach the son very well how to express himself. But if he doesn't, then the son will not be able to, or will not even see the need to express what
it will be handed down generationally.
It will
You
be
learn
handed
it
down.
by seeing and expressing and experiencing that.
Is
Yes.
it? And just to sneak in some history there, that is why during the core rites of passage, like circumcision, or that whichever way, every community had a way that marked transition from childhood to adulthood. The transition consisted of two very important, many things, but two which I want to single out. One was, it was done in cohorts. Those like in cultures where circumcision was done, it was never a solo thing. You weren't circumcised privately in a hospital somewhere. No, it was done in a band.
Yeah.
And then that cohort was banded together, and they learned to interact with each other. Then the second thing, such transitions had people who in leadership we call masters of ceremony, not the MCs we know, but the masters of ceremony are people who'd walked that path before, who are then able to come and mentor the initiates as they made the transition, in this case from childhood to adulthood. And the studies have shown that this is very, very important. So if you just think about it in a corporate sense, when somebody is moving from an outsider to a new hire, we create something called onboarding.
Yeah.
One of the things we do, like for instance in onboarding, is the same thing. We put you in a cohort, and then we give you a master of ceremony. It could be somebody from HR or everything. And one of the things they teach you, like they used to do in initiation, is, besides the organization culture, the expectation is how to speak like that organization, is how to, the language. The same thing happened in initiation. And now, for every important relationship or Collins is speaking to, is a need for that exact thing to happen. The way you spoke when you're solo, when you're prior to marriage, is going to be very different, because when you're solo, there's a lot of me or I language, but when you get married, there's a lot of we language that needs to happen. And that is why things like marital counseling and everything help you to make the transition from, in terms of how you communicate, and all of those initiation things have a lot of self-awareness that then help you to self-diagnose, self-reflect, and then begin asking, in light of who I am, in light of the face or the organization I'm going to looks like, how do I need to speak? How do I need to show up? Now, modernity has come with its challenges, has broken those support for our transition processes, and maybe that's why we have a lot of undiagnosed, misdiagnosed individuals towering around.
I hear the need for us to create those mechanisms to diagnose misdiagnosed or undiagnosed emotions. And the truth be told, all of us, one, because we live in a broken world, all of us, maybe through trauma, something you saw, maybe through how you were raised and the experiences you went, religion bias, discrimination, or whatever it is that the stressor, the community, the environment shaped us either positively or negatively, in the areas we have to check on all those sides. So I think what we want to start doing in the next subsequent upcoming podcast is, viewers, you don't want to move, because we need to start talking about those emotions. How do I now tackle these emotions? Is important for me as a human being. Why is it that, as generally based on studies, men, there are certain top 5 emotions for men versus women, they tend to be opposite.
Let's spill the beans yet.
And what that does in the long run, and especially for us men, it's important to have this conversation as men, because we do not express ourselves. I can be the first one to say that emotions it's just expressing of emotions. I think when I hear time to express, the dashboards of every other emotion goes on. It's just weird. It's just different. It's just, but then you wonder, this is my sister. I mean, this is my, and then the things that we were taught, like, from my culture, guys, you don't hug, sit next to girls and stuff. And so I don't know. Now I'm expected to express emotions to my wife. Like everything in my growth was just boom, walls. Then all of a sudden you're plunged in that. You need to express that. So any parting shots as we start closing this down?
A lot of our emotion expressions across the board, love included, are mostly caught. They're not taught. They're caught. They're not taught. In other words, a young lady will learn to ululate in a wedding by watching her older ladies ululating. And if same girl grew in a culture where they do not ululate during weddings, she will not know how to ululate. But unfortunately, a lot of the things we caught by absorbing were not necessarily right or comprehensive. The beauty is this: the same pathways we used to catch previous behaviors are same pathways we can activate to catch new behavior. So not all hope is lost. And to just speak from the Bible at this point, in John 10:10, Jesus says, I have come, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. And part of that life abundantly includes the recognition and the expression of emotion. So one of the things that at least the biblical worldview gives to an individual journeying through this is the opportunity to properly actually diagnose and express those emotions, because the biblical worldview comes from a position that believes in human beings as created entities, and that emotion was given to them as a gift of being made in the image of God. And the same God who made them in that image is able to heal them and show them how to express it.
All right, thank you. You know, you used a word, and I know for sure if Kenan would have been sitting here, would have asked, what is that? So because I know him, the word you used was, it might sound ululating. It sounded differently. but really what it means is that when women express and they make those, how do we call it?
They're like whoops.
Whoops.
Like
those kind of
like
sounds.
that, yeah.
That's what it is. So for Kenan, that's a new terminology in your book. So in different cultures, I wanted to clarify that because some people don't even know what that will be.
Thanks for that.
Collins.
Well, what I can say is, if for men, it's not all is lost. We can learn. We can learn. The Bible says, beloved, let us love one another. And this does not just go to our sisters. It also goes to men. So then it's important that men also learn to appreciate their own emotions and how to express them. And by so doing, I believe that we can be more, we can achieve more, because once the inner environment is calm, you have the freedom, and actually your mind, you can go far.
Yeah.
But as long as something is eating you up, it's really hard to put your best, to use the words of Syed, to bring up your A game in a task.
Syed, you
or
coined that
in
word.
And he borrowed from me. I borrowed from somewhere else.
All right, as we part this, I think viewers, listeners, thank you for spending time with us. As we close this, just want to say a couple of things. Number one is that all emotions are valid. And all emotions, they're beyond our control, in the sense that they're in us. We have the capacity and the potential of that. How to express it is also the intentionality and the willingness for us to be able to learn how to express the positive and the negative emotions. If I'm sad, I'm sad. Don't suppress that emotion. Say, no, you can't be sad. It is a genuine emotive that is coming from me. Let's get to the root of the cause and address that. And if it's not addressed, violence, mental health, depression, suicidal thoughts, all these things are the dashboard, the indicators of a society that still has misdiagnosed emotions, undiagnosed emotions, and when they come together, it's just problems across and all over the place. However, there is hope, because he who made us, the designer, also gives us the tools and the resources for us to deal with that. The next session, we're going to start talking about those emotions and how to combat and deal with them. Thank you so much for joining us. That has been our time here. Our only submission and request is that this podcast is not tampered with. It is not edited. Everything is taken as it came throughout the podcast. Thank you, guys. That has been our time here at Amazing Truth Ministries. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazing Truth Podcast. We hope you were blessed as you listened. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you on the next one.